I just want to congratulate you and your staff. It's a fantastic facility over there. My wife and I love going over there. I think that you answered the question that I had for you, and you're not fearing competition with the Sands when they open the event center?
No. Again, look at that map. There are 2.5 million people roughly in that 40-mile radius. That's Denver. That's Phoenix. Think about it for a minute. We're on the East Coast. And look at the whole state of New Jersey and try to find a venue that's similar to what we're offering here. The whole state of New Jersey, okay? And then look down to southeastern Pennsylvania and figure you have to drive down to Schuylkill to get to some place that's like this. Just think, that's the way we think. We're not looking at just the Lehigh Valley. If we were looking at the Lehigh Valley for all these venues you're talking about, we would definitely be nervous. We're not just looking at the Lehigh Valley.
One more question, Jeff. If you had your wish, what would you like to see next to you on the property? What would benefit your organization the most?
Well, I think it has to be something in the line of entertainment, retail. I understand why Wendy's and Burger King and McDonald's are all in a row, okay? I get it. So when you say, is the Sands a threat? Never. The more people that come to that site for their entertainment needs, I'd love to see a cinema megaplex that isn't going to show art films, because we got that niche. But I'd love to see a cinema megaplex. I'd love to see more restaurants. I'd love to see more things to do for families. Those are the opportunities, I think, to make this a better destination. And I'd love to see the National Museum of Industrial History finished as well, because again, that adds to the attraction.
Thank you.
All right, we will turn this part of the meeting over to the public comment, subject to a 5-minute time limit. Anyone would like to speak on behalf of the public? Thank you, Mr. Parks, for answering the questions. Mr. Fennick.
Robert Fennick, 2830 Linden Street. Some random comments here. First, in his presentation, Mr. Parks pointed out that 40 businesses used his facilities, and they charged him. Now, I'm part owner of a hotel a couple blocks down the street. And in order to compete for the same business, I have a problem because I got to pay income tax, I got to pay property tax. So I have a fundamental problem as a business owner having an uneven playing field. Now, luckily, I think for Mr. Parks and his friends, the Sands management's a tad bit more broad-minded than I am. But that's the difference between ownership and management. There was a question made at the county council presentation, and I love Jeff's first presentation. I'm here again tonight for the second one. Councilman McClure asked a question, and I think I'm paraphrasing him correctly. He says, when will you be divesting yourself from feeding at the public trough? And Jeff split his response into two pieces. His feeling was it was okay for capital projects, but he felt that the operational cost had to be borne totally through his own revenues and not from the public trough, that he's relying on ticketing, food and beverage, sponsorships, grants, other donations. So he separated the two. Looking at the operational cost for a second and what City Council has to do with this, I believe the mayor has committed to reopen and review the infamous service agreement that was made with Music Fest. If Mr. Parks, in fact, wants to not have to go to the public trough for operational means, then I would hope the city would work out an agreement where they would bill the full cost of services rendered. Now, by the full cost, it's just not the paycheck. It's also FICA, the employer's share, it's the FUTA, the PAUT, related pension benefits, and whatever else goes along with those salary dollars. So if we're going to go through with that, let's hope the service agreement covers that for operational. Now, on the capital side of things, Jeff didn't mention this in this presentation, the TIF has or the redevelopment authority with the TIF funding has announced they got another $10 to $15 million to play with because of the reassessment of the Sands property. Act 113, the TIF legislation, clearly set forth that the infrastructure being built should be designed to have taxable development. And Mr. Parks has alluded to that tonight, that that's where things are going. And I obviously, being a member of the public, I'm not in the kitchen where they're brewing all this great development, and I don't expect to be. But I'm patiently sitting at my table waiting for the appetizer to come out of the kitchen, and hasn't shown up in over a year since we started, but maybe I'm just getting impatient. I think it's great that the city has gotten this Sustainable Citizens or Cities Design Academy grant, because I think the property does need another review. The TIF plan was, well over 10 years old, and lots of things have changed. But there is one other capital project that remains down there in Arts Quest domain, and that's the Festival Center, which they already have, I believe, some RCAP funding for. And I remain to be convinced that we would need to put any capital funds in that particular project in order to generate the taxable revenue. I could be convinced, and guns are powerful things. Now, one other comment that I have to make, and this is, I don't like the end justifies the means concept, so what I'm about to say is not that. But after sitting through Mr. Park's presentation twice, I can't but help feel warm and cuddly. And I will echo from the public side my congratulations and praise to Mr. Parks and his organization for what he has accomplished so far. I just hope he continues and builds on that. And I hope, in fact, that that whole area turns out to be a great thing. And so on that, that's the second nice thing I've said about Steve's Day. So I again thank the Arts Quest people for all they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fennick. Anyone else under public comment? We'll quickly turn back to council. Any final comments before we adjourn tonight?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Parks.
Mr. President, I'm sorry. Just a couple quick slides. Actually, in part response, because I thought council might ask about this, but in part response to Mr. Fennick, I just wanted to share with council, this is a map of Music Fest 2002, and it shows the sites that were owned by the city and the sites that are in private hands, most of which are historic Bethlehem, which is technically owned by the city, but on a 100-year lease to historic Bethlehem, and Moravian College. In 2002, we had 16 sites, 9 of which were city property. This is the map of Music Fest 2012, which is pretty much identical to 2011. In 2011, we have 13 sites, multiple sites actually in the Arts Quest Center, but 13 individual buildings or properties, and only 4 are city properties. We agree with you, Mr. Fennick, and we are working, other than the fact that I beg to differ with you on one thing, and that is that as an organization that's bringing a large amount of development to the city of Bethlehem and economic impact, we do feel that the city ought to be sponsoring Music Fest in some way, shape, or form, and that amount should be determined, whether that's in kind or otherwise. However, what we want to share with you is that we are working very diligently, and we will keep our comment to come back to council, hopefully by the end of April, with a proposed revision to the lease that will dramatically cut the amount of city services that are used for Music Fest. And the private sector can do a lot of these things at a much lower cost than the utilization of city resources. And we understand the scarcity of the resources and the expense to the city. And so based upon both the controller's comments and council's comments and Mr. Fennick's comments, we are working very hard to reduce those costs and hope to be back to you by the end of April with a new proposal for our financial relationship. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Parks. Any final comments? No. Thank you, Mr. Parks, for coming out tonight, give us a general update on the steel stacks and what's been happening, and for bringing the members of the staff and the board, as well as your accountant, to fill in some of the numbers that we were really looking forward to seeing. You certainly weathered a heck of a storm, and I said in a couple of ways, the storm to hit in the summer, but also being the startup and the fact the economy wasn't helped to much of anybody in the last couple of years, and getting through that in the way it did, and if there's a period that the economy's starting to pick up, we're seeing indicators with regard to unemployment in other areas, the numbers that we see for January and February are really giving us signs, and we hope and certainly support with what you're doing. We have high expectations for you and your group, and we wish you all the luck. Thank you very much. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. City Council meeting will begin at 7 p.m. Thank you.